This is Gentry-debonis, guitarist for Gentry Blue, who wrote the musical arrangement for our single, Tell Them I'm Insane. And this is a guitar tutorial video for anyone who is wanting to learn how to play the song on guitar. So, Tell Them I'm Insane by Gentry Blue, it starts out in 9th position, which means basically your first finger is on the 9th fret, and then the rest of them follow accordingly. 2nd finger on the 10th fret, 3rd on the 11th, etc., etc. But primarily for most of the riff, most of the intro riff, you will be just using your 1st and 3rd finger on the 9th and 11th frets respectively. So it starts out on the D string, the 3rd lowest. You start with your 1st and 3rd fingers on the 9th and 11th frets. It starts with. Alright, then you do a bar on the G and B strings right above it on the 9th fret with your 1st finger. So those combined are, and then you go back down to the 11th and 9th frets on the D string, and then you put your 3rd finger on the 11th fret of the A string below that. So those 3 notes put together sound like, all of that put together so far is, then you go back to the D string and go 3rd, 1st, 3rd finger. So far we got. You then bar your 3rd finger on the 11th fret of the G and B strings, the 2nd and 3rd highest, and you actually bend it like a half step and then bend it back. So just bend both notes a little bit when you're barring the 2 strings. And then after that you do a hammer-on and the same 2 strings from your 1st to the 3rd finger, just a real quick. So both that bend and the hammer-on put together sound like. So far we got. And then it starts the same way at first. Then you do the bar again on your 1st finger on the G and B strings. And then with your 3rd finger, the bend again. Back to your 1st finger. And then you end on the 11th fret of the D string with your 3rd finger, which is the root note. So that last part sounds like. Alright, so all of that put together so far, we got. And for that part of the song, it's just guitar. Then the drums and bass come in, and it starts out the same way. But here, the inversions for the end are a little bit different the second time you play it. We then play an octave, actually, on the G and high E strings with your, again, you're starting out still in 9th position with your 1st and 4th fingers on the 9th and 12th frets respectively. You're gonna wanna you're gonna wanna play the 1st and 3rd highest strings, and you're gonna wanna make sure that the B string in between those 2 are muted, so there's no sound coming out of it. Make sure your 1st finger is touching the B string, but not holding it down so it doesn't ring out, just. Then you do that same shape, like this is when you switch positions for the first time. You do that same shape 2 frets higher on the 11th fret, and then 1 fret higher on the 12th, back to the 11th, back to the 9th, and then do an octave on the root note. That last note would be on the D and B strings respectively, making sure the G string doesn't ring out. So that last part again sounds like. So in the riff it sounds like. So both of them put together, we got. And then. Alright, and then that's when the vocals come in. That's the full intro to the song. Then when the vocals come in, you're going to want to do a 3-finger power chord, again in 9th position, with your 1st finger on the low E string, 3rd finger on the 11th fret of the A string, on the 11th fret of the D string. So just power chord. And you're going to want to try to palm mute it a little bit here and just go. That's the general, that's kind of how you're going to be playing it basically. But you switch chords when the vocals come in. Staring at the ceiling with my arms by my side. On side, you're basically just want to shift all of your fingers up one string to make it a power chord on F sharp. Same frets, just starting on the A string rather than the E string. So, and you switch chords on side. Arms by my side. Back to the initial power chord. Still as a statue with, and then you're going to want to go up to, I guess, it'd be considered a tritone of the root. On the 10th fret, you're going to want to go kind of like a walk down on G, F sharp, all 3 finger power chords starting on the A string, back to the root power chord. So basically, you're copying the melody. The melody goes eyes open wide, while the guitar does the same thing. Eyes open wide. So far what that sounds like in context is staring at the ceiling with my arms by my side, still as a statue with my eyes open wide. Does the same thing. Subtle smile starts to creep on my face, all my thoughts rush, I can't keep up with pace. And then here is when it splits into actually 2 guitar parts at once for the first time of the song. The rhythm guitar keeps doing those power chords, while the lead sort of copies the melody, doing the same riff as the beginning. For I count my bullets, all these seconds tick by, so it will be the mood of day tonight. Made some mistakes, I wish I could undo. Too late to see exactly true. During the verse, you don't do the octave part of the riff, you just stick with to end it both times. And so that's the verse right there. After that, you're going to go to the pre-chorus, which is literally just 2 chords. It's A and G sharp. For the A, if you can't bar all 6 strings or whatever, it's not a problem. You don't really need to. I don't really play the high strings during that part anyway. So just if you want to just do a standard A shape on the 4 lowest strings, that's on the 5th fret. Or if you prefer to play your A down here, that works too. But either way, you kind of mute an A, like, and then you go down to 1 fret to G sharp. Personally, I play a G sharp 7 chord where the first finger bars also over the D string instead of putting your pinky down, so it sounds like opposed to. But if you don't want to play the 7, that's totally fine. The 2 are pretty interchangeable, so you could play a G sharp 7 or just a standard G sharp chord. But basically, in context, the 2 chords put together sounds like, who's to define what's good and what's bad? I'll be set free if I tell them I'm mad. Then we get into the chorus, which is, the chords are A, E, C sharp minor, back to B, A, then I do like a little riff in the recording, and the lead part kind of sounds like. You don't need to play that riff exactly. You don't need to play a riff at all there if you don't want. You could just go up. But if you want to play a riff there, honestly, even though the song is in C sharp minor, since we're playing over a B chord, for those of you who don't know, the relative minor to B is actually G sharp minor. So if you want to play a riff in the G sharp pentatonic scale, that's on the 4th fret, so you can do a riff. Like whatever riff you want to play in the pentatonic scale. The progression starts over. Another riff. For the first tell, you'll hold out an A chord for the hit. If I tell them I'm guilty, and then for the second tell, you're going to be doing G sharp or G sharp 7, whatever you prefer. Tell them I'm insane. So in context, if they tell me I'm guilty, I'll tell them I'm insane. Then you go back to the riff from the beginning, but just one time through, and this time you will play the octaves at the end. So the one that sounds like.